Amision Wilkins was 17 years old. He would have graduated from high school this spring. Instead, his mother Shayna sat in a funeral home the day before they buried him and witnessed scenes of unspeakable tragedy. She spent nearly 2 years ever since then waiting for someone, anyone, to tell her why her son is dead and whether the man who killed him will be held accountable. Welcome to The Record. I'm Mark Maxwell. Our top story, a police shooting, the body cam video, the silence that followed, and the one man who can break it. June 18, 2024, a St. Louis police officer chases a 17-year-old on foot after a stolen car pursuit. The officer fires 4 rounds. One strikes Amision Wilkins in the back of the head. The boy dies. That same day, the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department issues a press release. It says the suspect turned and pointed a gun at officers. That press release stayed on the record for nearly 2 years. Then the body camera footage came out this week. It shows the boy running away. It shows him shot from behind. And the department now admits the initial account was wrong. Here's what the evidence shows us. The gun police say they recovered from Wilkins was in pieces, disassembled, no magazine, incapable of being fired. That gun never appears in the short video we have so far reviewed. Police say it was in his front pocket. There's a photo, they tell us. He fell face down. The officer was behind him the entire time. A cell phone with blood on it was found next to the body. The second officer on the chase drew a taser, not a gun. The department's own pursuit policy authorizes the tactical unit to chase stolen cars. That policy does not apply to ordinary patrol officers. The department's own deadly use of force policy requires 3 conditions before firing at any suspect: a violent felony, a functional weapon, and a threat to human life. The officer has faced questions in a sworn deposition, but he invoked his Fifth Amendment rights more than 130 times. Circuit Attorney Gabe Gore got the police department's completed investigation about the use of force last October. He sat down with us to talk about this case and cases like it in his office Wednesday. Mr. Gore, let's talk about June of 2024. Police are chasing a stolen car. They deploy spike strips. Suspect gets out and runs away. An officer chases him and shoots 17-year-old Amision Wilkins in the back of the head. Police tell us at the time that Wilkins pointed a gun at the officer. But the officer's wearing a body camera, and we know now that the video contradicts what police told us about what happened that day. Other officers were also wearing body cameras. My question is this: have you personally watched all the body camera footage from that day?
No, I have not. I did watch basically the news coverage, the body cam footage that was played in the news coverage. There is a voluminous amount of body cam footage from that day. And in the course of reviewing this case, our office will review all of that body cam footage. And our typical approach and what we prefer is that all of that review be conducted by a single attorney, because you want somebody who has a complete and full picture of everything that happened as depicted in the body cams.
That lone attorney, are you suggesting their review has not yet begun?
The Amision Wilkins case was not yet reviewed because it chronologically didn't come up yet, but we are in the process of reviewing that case now.
When video evidence clearly contradicts the department's own initial narrative, does your office examine how that narrative was constructed?
What we do is we review these cases for the purpose of determining whether or not there have been a violation of the criminal laws of the state of Missouri. And even though it's a police officer case, we take the same approach. We're going to review all of the evidence relating to the case and the applicable law and make a determination as to whether or not a crime has been committed. If a crime has been committed, we're going to charge that crime.
If you saw someone changing their story, how does that affect the posture of the investigation or of the review, the decision to charge?
So again, I'm not going to talk about the specifics of this
speaking.
case, but generally speaking, if you have a fact witness and there's changes in their story, that goes to credibility. But I don't know that that has any particular applicability to this case.
Under Missouri law, internal disciplinary investigations inside the police department are basically frozen. They begin them, they hand them off to you, and then the department takes no action on discipline until your criminal review is complete. As long as your office has the file, the department cannot move forward with its own accountability process. Do you accept that your pace of work here controls the entire timeline of accountability, not just the charging decision, but the disciplinary outcome as well?
Those are decisions that are made outside of my purview. I have no control over them. I guess under state control, those decisions will be made by the Board of Commissioners. But I don't, that's not something, I mean, we focus on our work here.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is the officer in this case takes the fifth 130 times in a deposition. That's his right. The department can't fire him because state law says you can't punish an officer for exercising their constitutional right. The internal investigation is frozen because your review is pending and open. Your review's been open now for 6 months. So right now, nobody is accountable for anything. Is that how this is supposed to work?
I can only handle my piece of it.
Amicia Wilkins' mom has said that she wants to know when she'll get an answer. Without telling me what your answer will be, when will she get one?
And let me just be clear. No matter what the result of our investigation is, what has occurred here is a tragedy. We have a young man who is dead. His family is grieving. And the Wilkins family, his mother, they have our deepest sympathies, and we understand that this is a tragedy and that nothing will ever undo that. In terms of timeline, I'm not going to give a timeline.
You came into this office, the relationship between the prosecutor and the police department was a fraught one, to say the least. That's a relationship that a lot of prosecutors rely on and need to have in functioning order to close cases. You work closely with their detectives, the warrant office, everybody kind of works together, prosecutors and police. Does your office feel independent enough from law enforcement to make an unpopular charging decision if the evidence warrants one?
Nothing's going to influence our charging decision in this case other than the facts and the law. And I pride myself on being able to do that.
You're not playing to the crowd.
I don't play to the crowd.
Coming up on Capitol Hill, a push to protect kids online. That's next. Welcome back. The internet can be a rather dangerous place for kids. The Senate Judiciary Committee has tried to do something about that twice. They unanimously passed a bill to strip social media companies of the legal shield that protects them from lawsuits over child sexual exploitation on those online platforms. The bill is called the Stop CSAM Act. CSAM, short for Child Sexual Abuse Material. The bill's authors are Illinois Democrat Dick Durbin and Missouri Republican Josh Hawley. Strange political bedfellows, united by one of the few things that still commands a 23-0 vote in the U.S. Senate. Here's what that bill would do. It would allow victims of child sexual exploitation to sue the platforms that hosted or facilitated that abuse. Closes a loophole in what's called the Section 230 of the Communications Act. That has functioned like something of a legal force field for years, protecting companies like Meta, Snap, and TikTok. It would require large tech companies to submit an annual transparency report on child safety. It would mandate cyber tip line reporting within 60 days of discovering any of that abusive material, and it would impose criminal fines of up to $1 million for a violation. It would expand victim protections in federal court, and it would create new civil remedies. In one case in New Mexico, a jury just hit Meta with a nearly $400 million verdict for enabling the sexual exploitation of minors. Senator Durbin called that proof that Section 230 is not as impregnable as some politicians have predicted. The bill passed out of committee, but it has never come to the floor for a vote.
I don't care how much money they make. I don't care how they justify it. I don't care how much money they give to their stockholders. It doesn't justify destroying the lives, the futures, the hopes, the dreams of our children.
Senator Hawley this week saying the obstacle isn't big tech alone, it's oftentimes his own colleagues. The Stop CSAM Act has the votes at the committee level, but again, doesn't have that vote on the floor yet. Hawley, who rarely agrees with Dick Durbin on much of anything, has been explicit about why. He says it's all that lobbying money. Big tech spends more on lobbying than about any other industry in D.C., and in Hawley's telling, that money has purchased the silence from senators who won't put themselves on the record on the voting board for or against protecting kids online.
It's time to count heads. It's time to stand up and see where people are. Senator Durbin is telling the truth. You know who has the most money of lobbyists of any group in this Capitol? It's big tech. And for years, they have thought that they could purchase the United States Senate. There ought to be a sign on the door of the Senate that says, property of big tech. It's time to take that sign down.
Senator Dick Durbin is now on the record. Senator, you're pushing legislation to gut Section 230 and hold big tech accountable for what appears on their platforms. A lot of your colleagues in Congress who are now very interested in that were not so interested when censorship was going the other way. Why should anyone believe this is about protecting kids and not about politics?
I can tell you, just ask any parent or grandparent who's paying any attention to their kids what it feels like when that kid picks up that cell phone and stares at it for hours every single day. You wonder just what in the hell are they looking at? What is it that has hypnotized them? Can it hurt them? The fact of the matter is it can, and it's designed by many of these platforms to addict these children to their phones, and sad results occur. I've seen them in my committee where people come in and talk about children who were changed because of this experience, and some who lost their lives committing suicide. It's a reality. And now that this big tech has lost cases in New Mexico and California, people are realizing that it's not just big tech, it's big tech that acts like big tobacco.
Senator, you stood there alongside Josh Hawley, not someone with whom you agree on much, to say that Congress has to act on children's safety online. Moms and dads watching this have seen their kids suffer. What's the honest answer when they ask, is Congress really going to do something this time?
I don't know the answer to that, but I want to tell you this is a bipartisan issue. My partner in dealing with what's called children's sexual abuse material is Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley and Dick Durbin don't agree on a handful of things when it comes to politics, but we agree on this. And when we brought the issue before the committee, it was a unanimous vote. 23 senators voted to put an end to this terrible exploitation of children. So the political sentiment is there. Big tech is spending a fortune to stop this from occurring. They're going to lose.
The clock is running there and somewhere else. Under the War Powers Act of 1973, Congress has just 60 days from the start of military engagement to authorize force or to require a withdrawal. That deadline in the Iran war arrives at the end of April. This week, Congress had two chances to act. It passed on both. The Senate rejected a War Powers resolution Wednesday. The House followed Thursday, 213 to 214, a margin of just one vote. 13 American service members are dead, tens of thousands of troops deployed, and as of this week, Congress has held 0 public hearings on why the U.S. went to war with Iran in the first place or what the plan is to end it. Senator, you're calling for the consent of Congress on war in Iran, but Congress has been authorizing open-ended military action for decades. In 2001 and 2002, the AUMFs are still on the books. Isn't the real problem that Congress just sort of gave that power away and only wants it back when the other party uses it?
Well, I can tell you some presidents respect it and some don't. President Bush, when it came to the invasion of Iraq, had a full-scale national debate, even went to the United Nations with Colin Powell to make the argument of why there should be an invasion of Kuwait to stop Saddam Hussein. There was a national debate because the Constitution asked for it, and that president respected the Constitution. When the vote came, there were 23 of us who voted against the war in Iraq. One Republican, myself, and 21 other Democrats voted against that invasion. It was the right vote. It's the best vote I ever cast, because when we got into Iraq, we looked around. There was Saddam Hussein. We took care of him. But there were no weapons of mass destruction. That's what we were looking for. None. The intelligence agencies of the United States blew it. And the fact of the matter is, during the debate, we learned why they were going in. And when they got there, we realized that we'd failed in the mission.
Looking at the record, in 2003, you voted against the Iraq War. In 2025, you said this Iran conflict is one the president, quote, helped create. But the War Powers resolution you supported just failed with only 23 votes. If you couldn't hold your own caucus, what leverage do Democrats actually have?
Well, I can tell you, our caucus believes that we should debate and vote on this on the floor. How do you explain to the American people that you're asking them to send their sons and daughters into combat and risk their lives, and we don't have a single public hearing on why we invaded Iran and what the plan is going forward? This president has given more explanations, and they contradict themselves. One day we're closing the Straits of Hormuz. The next day we're opening the Straits of Hormuz. One day it's missiles. The next day it's a Navy. It's nuclear weapons. You can't keep up with it. This president is making it up as he goes along. I don't think he thought through this clearly. He's an impulsive person, and that's exactly the wrong kind of person to be a commander-in-chief.
Senator Durbin, you sit on the Judiciary Committee alongside Senators Hawley and Eric Schmitt. That committee oversees the confirmation of the president's picks to wear the robe. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals has jurisdiction over more than 20 million Americans across 8 states, including Missouri and Illinois, and judges confirmed to that court serve for life. Just this week, we saw the confirmation hearing for Justin Smith, a Missouri lawyer, former top aide to Senator Schmitt. Schmitt introduced his former colleague personally. Take a look.
Justin Smith is one of the finest lawyers I've ever worked with in my whole life. He knows that the job is not to invent law, not to chase political fashion, not to impose personal will from the bench.
Missouri's own Justin Smith, President Trump's pick for the 8th Circuit, refused under oath to acknowledge that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. He's likely to be confirmed. You said there's going to be a compilation of nominees refusing to answer that question. Is that really enough, a video, or is there something the Senate Judiciary Committee can actually do to stop all this?
It's a shame that you have Mr. Smith and people just like him who have a long legal resume, have been outstanding students, and when you ask them the basic question, who won the election in 2020? A question that kids in the 5th grade can answer in schools in Missouri and Illinois. These nominees won't say the real answer, that Joe Biden beat Donald Trump, because they're afraid they'll get Trump angry and he'll yank their nominations. He's a spiteful person, and if you don't buy his vision of the world, you pay a price. That's why they all get squirmy and give these goofy answers to an obvious question.
A tax cut on the fast track. What's next for a Missouri bill that would also raise some other tax bills? That's next. Governor Mike Kehoe's tax plan is moving in Jefferson City. Senate Republicans advanced that plan to replace the state's income tax with a broader sales tax. Senators started discussing that bill around 11:30, almost midnight Wednesday night, then passed at 18 to 11 more than an hour later. Democrats unanimously lined up to oppose it, but now it heads to the House for a vote. You would get the final vote at the ballot box. A St. Charles City Council race is ending in a random drawing after both candidates tied at the polls. Incumbent Bill Otto and challenger Chris Kyle each got 572 votes in the first ward. City rules require a winner decided by lot in a tie. According to the city spokesperson, Jamie Newell, that means both names will be put into an opaque jar. The city clerk, Kim Hudson, will pull the winner out. She's going to do that during next Tuesday's council meeting. You can tune in to watch that. We're back in a moment to check the record. "25 years ago, a Republican and Democrat from Missouri did something that was already becoming quite rare. They built something together. Today, it's an iconic signature of the downtown St. Louis skyline, the Thomas Eagleton Federal Courthouse. 29 stories of marble and steel, the largest single federal courthouse in the nation. It houses the Eastern District of Missouri, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. It's where the rule of law lives and breathes, where citizens who have no real power except their rights can walk in off the street and demand to be heard, where the idea of justice and the promise that Americans are all equal and deserve a fair shake, all that hangs in the balance inside there. This week, in celebrating 25 years of that ribbon cutting, former Senator Jack Danforth returned to that building alongside former Congressman Dick Gephardt and delivered a warning about the foundations, not of that building, but what that institution represents.
Something is terribly wrong with our politics. The strategy of successful politicians in these times is the opposite of Tom's. It's to enrage us, to fool us into thinking that political questions are existential, that we're in a perpetual fight of us against them, good against evil. Government can't work this way, and it isn't working today.
You'll never see Danforth's name on a ballot again. He's 88 years old, an ordained Episcopal priest, a man who has nothing left to prove and nothing left to sell you. So when he says politicians are deliberately trying to make us angry, turning neighbors into enemies, you have to ask, who is he talking about? He didn't name a party, he named a strategy, and that strategy, he says, is working. The courthouse he helped to build still stands. In 25 years, it hasn't moved an inch. The question Danforth asks us this week is whether the rest of us have. That's our show. Until next time, we're off the record.